everybody, and welcome to the first episode of my fledgling podcast here on YouTube, Northern Heresy Podcast, with my amazing host, Mr. Kyle, who is the man in the know when it comes to heresy. And I will get him to introduce himself now, so you all know him. Because you all know me. Well, at least you should if you're on my channel. So over to you, Kyle. Introduce yourself.
Hello there, everybody. I'm Kyle. I have been a little bit of gaming background for myself would be that was heavily involved in 40k through multiple years. I started it back whenever I was 11 years old, and now we're over 2 decades further than that. And from Heresy 1, Heresy version 1 is being referred to now.
First edition.
Started building up first edition. Started collecting Space Wolves and haven't stopped.
Your Space Wolves.
Yeah, so came from a competitive place, but not that competitive anymore. But still take some of the ideas from it.
Yes, I would definitely say as a podcast going forward, we definitely have two polar opposite views here. You being more competitive minded, and me being very narrative.
I do enjoy building a list is enjoyable.
My narrativeness was definitely highlighted on Monday though, when the Games Workshop dropped the marine things for 10th edition, and I was chatting to our friend Pete about how awesome Deathwatch looked and how cool they looked, and I laid out this cool looking army that I had in my head, and he went, "Have you seen the memes, Rick?" And I went, "Oh my god, are they really bad?" And he went, "No, they're broken as shit." And I think that just highlights the kind of player I am, that I don't really see these stupid, crazy combos that everyone else does.
So because of the pandemic and everything else that occurred over the last few years, obviously 9th edition came out pretty well mid whenever it was during COVID, and I took it upon myself to start a brand new army project to keep myself busy, to keep myself entertained while I was locked away, much like a lot of other people did. I went with an Echelon army. Now I've been a steadfast Space Wolves follower for many editions. And I decided to dip my toe back in because, as you say, the data sheets came out the other day. How do we look over them? And I'm disappointed, really disappointed. I think obviously this is at index level, so we don't have full rules. We have
That's very true.
placeholders until the actual codexes get up, right?
Yes,
But
I definitely think as an episode, the nuances of 10th edition is something that you can definitely jump into as a rabbit hole. There's a lot of interesting takes on the new edition. As an Age of Sigmar player, primarily I quite like the look of it because it's very similar to Age of Sigmar.
So I'll give you an example before we actually jump into what we're here to talk about today. So looking at the Space Wolf datasheets, the one that popped out at me was Wolfen.
Oh,
now,
yes.
Now, Wolfen, as you well know,
They have been gutted.
And as many other people here listening to this first rendition of podcast, they have been gutted. And gutted to a horrible extent.
I do believe there is a typo, though. I think that their Thunderhammers are actually meant to be Thunderhammers and not what is presented on the datasheet. So that will be getting FAQ'd, I imagine.
The hammers is definitely a main focus point of what I'm talking about here.
Yeah, I think that is a cock up on
everybody
their
else
half.
gets Thunderhammers. Wolfen get Wolfenhammers, which are strength 5, AP -1, 1 damage.
Yeah,
I mean that just sucks.
Yeah, I think that was a cock up. At least from the playtesters that have come out and said that that is definitely an oversight and a mistake.
Well, on top of that, because obviously I was myself and yourself were one of the first ones to build those kits whenever they originally came out, and I mean
Yes,
they are chock full of options. It's
they
like you can
are. Yeah.
take them with just the regular claws. You can give them the frost claws for like the leaders and stuff. The great frost axes that were in the kit, absolutely cool looking models, and then you get the thunder hammers and storm shields. And what
Yes.
they've done with this is they've just turned it into everything is just treated as claws unless you've got this crappy hammer. And I'm not impressed.
Yeah. But as a Space Wolf Heresy player, would you not like them to give you Wolfen rules for Horus Heresy?
I would, but I would. I mean, it's such a weird thing for the heresy perspective because while Wolfen would be very cool to model on the table, and we've got inducti rules which would actually do pretty well to show off a big pack of Wolfen, because that's just what they are. You can model them how you like, but Deathsworn really sort of filled that niche that Wolfen filled in 40k, and I like that. They're different. They're as we whenever we talk about Space Wolves and proper, we'll get into that properly. But there's certain things that I think that every Legion in 30k does really really well, and some of them I think that they've just missed the mark a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that'll make itself more apparent as we progress through these series. We'll look at the generic units. Today we're going to look at the legacies document and then the Legion specific stuff. And I think that that's going to make itself more, certainly for ourselves and for our listeners, is going to make us more aware of like the flaws and the perks of different units in the game.
Yeah, the one thing getting back into 30k is definitely hitting me is the wide variety of options. Like there is options for options, and it's been a while since having a game like that.
Yeah, I mean for people who are just sort of getting into heresy and wanting to dip your toe in, it's like unlike 40k, which has you've got your Imperial Space Marines of various flavors, and then you've got your Chaos Space Marines that are separate. Everything in 30k that is a Space Marine follows Legion rules. Everybody has access to roughly the same access to the units. Depending on your Legion, you'll have some restrictions placed upon you, some that you can choose yourself to put more restrictions, some which create lift limitations and allow you to change things. So it's a fantastic way. I mean, I certainly have I've never been in a position where it's like every single person, no matter what the Legion, is taking the same thing. Never encountered it. Which I think is really, really good, because some people I think would worry is that whenever everybody has access to the same stuff, you'd see nothing but the same stuff, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, I think for a lot of non-heresy players, obviously the first thing that they hit you with is it's just Space Marines versus Space Marines. In an instance, it is, but there's a lot of nuance there.
There is definitely a nuance to all of that, and it is more than the sum of its parts. And until you play and until you start to see it yourself, you'll still think it's just like, oh, everybody's just playing Marines and that's boring. But I think for those who are keen, and even those who are keen not to do a Marine army in 30k, there are other options. I absolutely adore the Imperialis militia that came out.
Yeah, I did look at them, but I wanted to use the new plastic Imperial Guard models.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, it was designed with them in mind, really, because all of those plastic kits got rules. Yeah. But you don't. But for me, it's a modeler's dream army, because you can make them pretty much whatever you want, right?
Yeah.
It's like if you want to do that like feral world, which just has a load of like beaten up tanks, you can do that. And you want to do a cavalry army? I've heard of a few people doing likes of taking was it the Riders of Rohan from like the War of the Ring game and turning them into an army. So I
Oh,
mean,
I've not seen that.
There's tons of different options.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, there's a few different like project builds that I think, especially as like an allied detachment, I think the Imperialis militia do quite well for what you're paying for.
Is that the militia got their own book, or is it still PDF?
So the Imperialis militia got PDF book, so they did, but it's a really well thought out book. I mean, I know that a lot of people had problems with like the demon PDF that came out, but that is a placeholder until they're able to get the Ruinstorm rules out. Whereas the Imperialis militia, while it would have been nice to have them in their own book, is just it's something that I mean it's a free army list for anybody who wants to play. I mean, who can be mad at that?
Oh, I'm sure there are many people out there mad at something.
I'm sure there are, but I'm not one of them.
It's amazing what Warhammer fans get mad out. Ooh. Yes, I'm just downloading militia rules.
Yeah, we can go through that at another time as well. As the viewership should probably have realized by this point, there's a fair amount of topics that we can discuss over whatever it's worth the time.
Yes, I will not delve into that too much because it's just seen some interesting things.
It's a rabbit hole in itself.
So good. So we're going to look at expanded legions in the legacy document, which is essentially all of the things that didn't make it into second edition, but kind of still exist because people have models from first edition. And it's kind of a mixed bag from the look of it. There's a couple of named characters, there's Legion-specific units, fortifications, lots of cool stuff. I've noticed there is some old 40k units like the Indomitus Terminator Squad.
Yes, we'll get to them, and you'll hear you'll either rage or you'll love me whenever we start talking about those lovely boys.
I do remember looking at them in first edition.
I think the first. I mean, we may as well take it from the top and start talking about the those two agents of the Emperor, the Knights Errant.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that they didn't get put into the book with the Custodes. To be fair,
I kind of get that, but then I'm kind of. I mean, I don't know about yourself, but I would quite like to see that whenever Black Shields get their own stuff, that the agents or the agents of the Sigilite will also get their own thing in the same way. I mean, wouldn't that be cool?
But from what I've listened to in the Siege books, they seem to be kind of like lone operators. They don't actually seem to be a force in their own right.
I think it's more. I mean, I certainly from a lore perspective, and you are the bigger expert on that. Is that the agents of the Sigilite did operate in not huge numbers, but they did operate to work for Malkador instead of their parent legions.
Yeah,
I mean there was like loyalist Night Lords and all sorts in there, and I think it's just some of those like quirky characters, and sure they might not be as popular as some of the mainstays, but I think it's always nice to have an option, right?
Yeah. Well, I think they would. I think when it definitely comes to the Siege of Terra campaign books, which we all know is going to be coming at some stage in the very near future, they would be there because they do play a big part in that.
Yeah, I mean, even if it was just as they're set out in this book, and then they have like a few different, like you can have like a veteran squad with some really unique options if you take these as your warlord and stuff. And I think that there is ways and means that you can bring these guys to the fore if you really like them on the tabletop.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the the first man on the list. So Mr. Nathaniel Garrow, of previously Death Guard origins.
Oh, Gyro. Imagine having a series of books all about you only to be relegated to a legacy list.
I know. That's why I'm holding out hope for the future. But who knows?
Even Loken managed to make it into second edition.
Oh, he's in the same base as Abaddon, isn't
he? Yes, I believe he's in the. Is he in the trader book? I can't remember if he's in. He's definitely not in the loyalist book.
He's under Sons of Horus, but he's loyalist only.
Yes. Mr. Mary Sue Loken. Don't even start me on that man.
But anyway, so Nathaniel Garrow. So he's 170 points, which is, well, we'll go through his war gear and his stats, and then we can talk about his points and see if they actually match up. So he's got the movement of Marine, so 7 inches. He's got weapon skill 6, which is your Praetor level.
Yes.
Ballistic skill 5, toughness and strength 4, 3 wounds, initiative 5, 4 attacks, leisure 10, 2 up save, and his armor must be special and give him an invulnerable save somewhere. Yes, so his armor gives him a 2 up save and a 4 up invulnerable save.
Yeah.
And it's increased to a 3 up whenever he's fighting in a challenge, which isn't too bad.
That's pretty spicy.
So he's still a little pricey. So let's see. So he's got a Paragon Bolter, the Libertas, Frag Crack Grenades, and then he's got his armor, which gives him his 2 up, 4 up, which is okay. He can be included in an army as a non-compulsory HQ and can never be the warlord. So he's just a dude.
Yeah.
But he's an independent character. He's battle hardened 1, which in the new rules, this is one of the new universal rules, is you treat yourself as a toughness higher for the purposes of instant death and to wound. So he's technically toughness 5 in certain scenarios.
Yeah, I noticed that the Salamander item that used to give Eternal Warrior is now Battle Hardened 1.
Yeah, a lot of that changed, and I think the only things that really get Eternal Warrior now are Primarchs, Sigismund, because he's, Sigismund, and the likes of Dreadnoughts and things like that. Dreadnoughts. Dreadnoughts take D3 wounds instead of a single wound.
Yeah.
So he's okay. So Libertas is +1 strength, AP2, melee 2-handed with Edge of Truth. So Edge of Truth is when he's fighting in a challenge, he gains Reach 1, Brutal 2. So Garrow really wants to be in a challenge, is the way that this is reading. He gets just so much better whenever he's in a challenge. Why would you keep him away from it? Because Reach 1 means, I think, on the charge, he's at 1 initiative higher. And Brutal 2 means that you're having to take 2 saves for every 1 wound he inflicts.
Yeah.
Which is really good. And striking an initiative with AP2 is really difficult to come across in version 2. So I think that this guy is actually pretty good.
Yeah, he is only initiative 5 though.
On the charge, if Reach is what I believe it is, it means that he goes up to initiative 6 on the charge, which puts you above most Marine equivalent characters.
Yeah.
Certainly against other Praetors and other Centurions, you're striking first. Emperor's Children, you're out of luck.
I would definitely be interested to see how he matches up. Now, I'm just going to ignore Sigismund straight away because he isn't on the same level as most Praetors. He's almost in the in the
No,
bracket of a Primarch.
he's, he's a diet Primarch, really.
Yeah, he's basically Primarch light.
Yeah, yeah.
But I would be interested to see Nathan up against someone like Sevatar, who is a character that is definitely renowned for being a beat stick in a challenge.
Yeah,
And my arch nemesis.
Those characters are all over the place. I mean, Karn, I think, benefits from challenges. Even the generic champion, which
Oh, yes, I love the generic champion.
I really like the generic champion this edition.
Yeah,
I think it's great.
that model
Um,
has won me games when I should have been stomped. But
so
yes,
that's Nathaniel Garrow. He's a little bit pricey to do what he does, but he's a little bit tougher. The fact that he can never be your warlord and can't be a compulsory HQ is a little bit more restrictive. But I think if you're wanting to play him in your games, I mean, he's gonna do some work whenever he's there.
yeah, I would definitely stick him in a unit of maybe a bunch of the spoilers
I think
kitted out
the
for
one
close
thing you need to
combat.
keep in mind is that because he doesn't share their um, Legion rules, you'll not benefit from them whenever you use them.
I know, but you're basically just using that 10-man squad as a delivery mechanism to get him into the fights. Uh, like, even if you throw him in a drop pod and
I
wheel him
mean,
into someone's face.
he's got one of those more unique rules in 30k where whenever he loses his last wound, you get to do a test, and on a 4-up, he stays in play with a single wound instead of being removed.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's fun. That's all I can really say about it. He's not too bad. I mean, he's strength 5, he's AP 2, he's initiative 5 or 6 in the charge. He's gonna beat most people, and he does pretty well at surviving the challenges whenever he goes into them. That's all you can really say.
Well, having a 3-up invulnerable in a challenge is pretty damn good.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. And for viewers, for completion's sake, the Paragon Bolter is a range 24 weapon, which is strength 5 AP 4, assault 2 with shred. So it's all right. It's a heavy bolter with bolt gun stats. Sort
Yeah. Mr. Rubio. I believe this guy's dead.
Charles Ruby. Okay, so you take this guy, and then I'll fill you in and sort of like what he's comparable to, I guess.
Well, he's a librarian for a start, which is from what I've seen is very unique because there's not many librarians kicking around the game unless you play Thousand Suns.
That is it's an interesting take from you, but certainly from the way that some people on the internet do talk, is that librarians are a lot more popular than they were in version 1.
I definitely want to get a librarian in my salamanders, just because I can turn all the ground into dangerous terrain, and that would be
I
funny.
think the fact that the salamanders have their own unique psychic powers is kind of cool. I mean, they're. I mean, would you agree with me that the salamanders are sort of like the ultimate good guy legion?
Well, yeah, they are the only legion with pure love for humanity. You know, they are they are the good guys in a sea of bad guys. And you know, even if you can call a genetically engineered psychopath a good guy, but
Yeah,
they are good guys. They like the little guy. But one thing about the salamanders before we completely go off topic
yeah.
is in regards to their librarians. I was very disappointed with the lack of flame psychic powers. When I flicked through my book and I seen that they had their own librarian stuff, I instantly excited about having a crazy pyromaniac burning everything, and then was like, oh, I just make the ground shaky. Oh, okay. That's still
Well, I mean,
cool, but I wanted like
isn't the whole thing with like
fire.
salamanders is like geomancy and stuff, and you could always do like pyromancy with like the regular powers?
They used. I believe that they used to have like the. I think they used to have the thing in first edition that the powers that they could take were the from the sort of fire discipline, um, and it was very thematic because obviously they definitely like fire, but now it seems to be more about playing around with the ground and everything else around them, which
I mean,
is
it'll be cool to test out and see how it works. And whenever we get to our salamander section, we can go into in depth on the old psychic powers because there's a few legions which have unique rules. The White Scars have their own as well,
yeah.
and I think it's good to go over those unique ones compared to the generic ones that everybody gains access to.
Hmm.
Just for in terms of utility, what can it give you that the regular things can't?
Yeah. Well, but on the Rubio, he's 150 points. He's a standard stat line as any other Marine, so weapon skill 5, ballistic skill 5. He only has 2 wounds, but he is initiative
He's
5 with 3
he's
attacks.
he's, he's a centurion.
He's the bog standard. He has the Paragon Bolter, which I believe will be a bog standard
It is the
weapon
same as
for
before.
all of the Knight Errants. Will get it.
Yeah.
And he does have his own weapon, Polaris, which I believe during the siege Loken is running around with, which is pretty decent. Strength 4, AP 3. It's got Rending 6 plus, Mastercrafted, and Divine Guidance. So, and Divine Guidance is a psycho weapon. So you can do a psychic check before making any attacks with a weapon and resolve the ability. And then the strength and the value of the attack made with the weapon or the abilities with this special rule is increased by +2. And gains the Reaping Blow 3 special rule. I have no idea what that is.
Reaping blow is whenever you're in base to base contact with more than one enemy in combat, you get the bracketed amount of attacks.
Well, that's not bad.
So whenever he's in base to base contact with 2 people, which let's be fair is not going to be difficult, he's going to get an extra 3 attacks just for being there.
Yeah. He has a 2-up save and a 4-up invulnerable, which for a Centurion level character to have a 4-up invulnerable is really good.
That armor counts as a psychic hood as well, which is really good.
Yeah.
And psychic hood this edition, whenever you're in range, reduces your leadership for psychic tests by 1. And leadership is really important this edition.
Well, it is when there's Night Lords running around everywhere.
Night Lords, nighttime, pinning weapons, shell shock. There's ton of fear. There's tons of ways to reduce your leadership. And the fact that this guy, a Centurion with leadership 10 instead of leadership 9, is quite big as well.
Yeah, we could definitely have an entire episode talking about how fun it is to play against Night Lords.
Okay, so what else does he get?
Well, he gets a couple of
covered his armor.
He gets a couple of psychic powers from divination and telepathy, and he has basically the exact same bolter as Gyro. Looking at him, to be completely honest, if you're going to bring a Knight Errant, and you didn't really need the librarian aspect, I would pay the extra 20 points and bring Gyro.
I mean, it's another. I mean, the Knights Errant suffer, I think, from the same problem: is that they aren't Legion units. They're non-compulsory or HQ choices. They can't be your warlord, and for what this guy gets you for 150 points, I'm gonna say he's a bit of a flop. Unless you want to field him because you like the character, right?
Yeah.
I'm talking from a point of view of this the stat line and the rules for him are a little bit lackluster, but I would never turn around and say, "Oh, this is a joke for you even bringing him." He'll still stand up and he'll still do a good job, just not maybe as good of a job as just a regular librarian.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean he's got the same sort of gun as Garrow, which I think if we do end up seeing Knights Errant or Agents of the Sigilites, they'll all just have Paragon bolters.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be their bog standard weapon.
Yeah, yeah. As for the rest of it, I mean, divination and telepathy, it's all right, but it's nothing to shout home about.
Now, if Knights Errant ever do get a generic unit of Knight Errants, the actual idea of a 10-man squad of them running around with Assault 2 Shred Strength 5 bolters is pretty scary to think about.
It's actually, I mean, you're talking about, I mean, it's Volkite that, well, Volkite without Deflagrate. You get
Yeah.
Shred. I mean, you're winding on threes with rerolls. It's just all around good. You're firing with the strength of heavy bolters. I mean, if it happens, it happens.
Yeah, that would be quite an interesting army.
But yeah, so that's the Knight Errant. It's not a large section, but that's because they're not really. I mean, it's part of a character range on Forge Online. They were never meant to be their own army. They were always meant to be as like tack-ons or additional guys.
Yeah, I can never understand why they made models for them.
I mean, why not? I guess. I mean, they do look cool.
Yeah, but give us the World Eater guy then.
So, after we've talked about the Knights Errant, the Legacy PDF has two consoles. Consoles are upgrades to your Centurions. So, the first one is the Legion Primus Nullificator, or Nullifactor. So, this guy he can only be a Cataphracti Centurion, so you need to give him that Cataphracti Terminator armor. And he's 45 points to include him as this console type. He replaces his power weapon for an Ether Shock Maul for free. We'll get into the stats at the end afterwards. He may exchange his bolt gun for either a Toxifier Inflamer or a Disintegrator. Now, I'd like Disintegrators. This may be a thing. But I certainly like Disintegrators. I think that they're cool, they're fun, they have a chance to blow up in your face.
You're one of these crazy people that like bringing radiation weapons to a firefight.
Oh, war crimes, man. War crimes, every time.
I'm a good Salamander player. I believe radiation is bad, but flames are perfectly fine. Burning people to death is good. Purifies their soul.
the rest of what this guy does, and this really is like this is like, I think that the way that the heresy books talk about these guys, because they're late heresy really, they came about to try and combat the demons and the word bearers that were trying to destroy everybody, and they were using dark tech to try and combat it. And just to sort of to go with that is like I think it'd be really cool for like a conversion job, like having my Speakers of the Dead, Casters of Runes, one of these guys just rocking about with all black armor, just in the back field with a unit of all black Terminators, and make them part of like the Destroyer cult. Yeah. And that's the way that I'm thinking about doing them, and I think that'd be cool. But so on top of his gun options, he becomes a Psyker. But can only have his own special discipline. Doesn't gain access to anything else. He gains hexagrammic wards, and he has Credo Annihilato, which is, I mean, it just sounds like an ice cream, doesn't it? So his psychic powers, Aetherbane is his psychic discipline. So he gets a psychic shooting attack. And it's called Ether Blast. It's range 18, strength 4, AP 3, assault 1, small blast, so 3-inch, Sanctic and crude Exegeris. Sanctic means that it's always wounding demons on a 2+, and any successful and vulnerable saves made by demons have to be re-rolled. which is really strong against anybody playing demons.
On looking at this, I think that this. I know this is a legacy unit.
Yeah.
But I think once the Runestorm actually get a proper book, I think GW will resurrect this from the legacy document to an
It's
actual proper
entirely
publication.
possible, and it's entirely possible that they get updated in another one of the campaign books coming down.
Purely just because it's anti-demon, and if they are
Yeah,
going to be bringing demons, then giving the Legion something anti-demon would be quite fitting.
I mean, I'm speaking about building this unit. I have never, in all of my years of playing Horus Heresy, have I ever seen anybody build this unit.
Yeah.
And it's one of those reasons that sort of makes me want to do it. But we'll keep on talking about this guy, and then we'll talk about the squad whenever they come up later on.
Okay.
So is Psychic Power wounds demons on 2+, and successful invulnerable saves need to be rerolled. Pretty good. Niche, sure, but kind of good. When rolling to scatter for the weapon, if both D6 results are the same number, so as an example, if you roll 3 on both dice, you center the blast on top of this guy instead of scattering it around the table. It just moves to being on top of you. It's like your psychic power overloading your brain. Which I think is, I mean, it's a little bit risky, but you've also got a 2-up save, so you're not going to really, right?
No, that's true.
And then Credo Annihilato is, if you include him, you get to turn a nullificator squad. So normally nullificators are a 0 to 1 choice. By taking this guy, you get to remove that restriction and make him troop choices as well, which is fun. If you've run out of elite slot, you've always got an extra troop slot there normally. And that is the Primus Nullifactor. As you say, I think it's one of those consoles that if you've got the points spare, you'll take him. But I think that the unit is better than him.
Yeah, I think they're definitely situational. You're only really going to bring them if you know you're coming up against things like demons. Or
demons. I mean, obviously, Zone Mortalis is out now, and I think that can be a lot of argument for things you wouldn't normally take in Age of Darkness, and using them in Zone Mortalis instead. And this could be one of those guys. And just for completeness' sake, so the Ether Shock Maul, which he gets, is a +1 strength, AP3 melee and deflagrate weapon. So it gets the same rules as Volkite. So whenever you don't make saves, you take extra wounds.
Yeah.
And Hexagrammic Wards is any roll to wound for an attack made with a psychic weapon against a model with a special rule suffers a -1 penalty. So that's -1 to wound against psychic powers being used against you. Is pretty strong.
Definitely an interesting choice.
But again, not one of those mandatory ones. More, you want to field something just a bit fun. It's not going to be game breaking in any way by just taking this guy.
No, definitely not.
And that's really, there's not much you can really say about this guy beyond that. The next console, however, it's close to my heart, and I will leave it up to you to talk about.
Really, I'm not from what I've skimmed over him, I'm not overly impressed with it, to be fair.
Well, let's go through the rules, and then I'll explain why I think that he's good.
So he's the Warmonger at console. So essentially, this is a guy that is a Centurion level that gets to lead assaults, basically. He's going to be in Cataphracti Terminator armor, and
this
all the Tartarus. So he's basically a Terminator console.
He can be in any armor, so he can. Which is nice to talk.
You can also have quite a lot of options for war gear. So I think you can pretty much tool him up to fit the role that you want him to be. But there's there's no there's no additional war gear or crazy guns like others. It's essentially two new rules.
So you
Um,
gotta remember, as we're talking about this from a generic standpoint, most legions have their own like unique things that can be tacked on to him, especially as he is an independent character. But for generic options, yes, you are entirely correct. He is the same as every other Centurion. He's not restricted in any way. He's just he's one of those hero models where it's just like, I don't have a specific model, but here's a warmonger for this game.
hmm, completely deployed. The spear tip rule seems quite interesting. It definitely seems to be um, deep strike orientated. But then that's what the spear tip is.
Yeah. So the way that his thing is it all uses this piece of war gear called the etheric juncture splicer, and it means that him and a unit of your choice before the start of the game can be deployed in reserve, and it becomes a deep strike unit, but you can't have any other deep strike assault units in the army. It's like he just turns himself and his squad into the tip of the spear, as the rule is.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean that comes with its own host of options. Is like whenever you deep strike, you roll to pin every unit within range of them. Whenever you do that, and then they can still charge. But it does restrict you in that that is the only deep strike you can do from the deep strike assault point of view.
Right. Okay.
I really like this guy because I use Spaceballs. I don't have access to Deep Strike. I'm not Imperial Fists or Sons of Horus or Raven Guard who just get tons of free access to it.
Yeah.
My Terminators don't get it free, so I have been using this guy and I have been deploying him with a unit of Varagir and just letting them cause mayhem in the middle of the board. I think he's just a great little addition.
Yeah, he definitely. Well, I, I'm trying to. I'm looking for the. I'm looking at this guy from my lens of how I would fit him into my force, and there's just
Well, I
nothing
mean,
there for me.
you take him with a unit of fire drakes, right?
Well, yes, but uh,
Or a big unit of pyroclast just to deep strike down and melt people's faces.
yeah, I'm trying not to go down the orbital assault type route. As much as I
That's
would love a million drop
it's,
pods.
I think that this guy is, you just want a little splash of deep strike in your army and he just becomes a hammer to the anvil of the rest of it, right? And it's just another thing for your opponent to worry about, which is coming in later. I think it can work as the good old term of it could be a nice distraction card effect.
Yeah. Interesting.
But yeah, you can kit him up as expensive or unexpensive as you like. I think the cheapest you can take him is just buying the console upgrade, which puts him in at like 105 points, which is really cheap to give a unit deep strike and an extra body.
So, do you want to look at the nullifier squad? Seems like you like
Yes.
the console
So
so much.
these guys, yes. So they're stuck as 0 to 1 choice, an elite choice for any legion.
200.
Starting at 245 points for 5,
That's pricey.
which is, I mean, it's 5 points cheaper than a few of the Legion specific Terminator units, but it's still pretty expensive.
It is.
So for that, you get the standard stat line of a Legion Terminator.
Yep.
Which is, and they're all in Cataphracti, so they're movement 6, weapon skill, ballistic skill 4, strength and toughness 4, 2 wounds, initiative 4, 2 attacks, leadership 8, 2 up save, 4 up and vulnerable. Now, they all get Ether Shock Mauls, which is the +1 strength AP3 deflagrate weapon. They're all heavy, which is really good because then blasts and templates are reroll. You get to reroll your wounds against them, which is a standard thing for anything that's heavy.
I do like that they're stubborn.
Stubborn is really good,
Yeah,
especially as we've briefly mentioned about leadership. Qualms.
If our friend Chris is listening to this, my salamanders are coming for you, boy. We'll have to get Chris
They're
on.
relentless, they're bulky too, and they have the hexagrammic wards, much like the Primus Nullifactor.
Yeah.
Which is your -1 to wound. A squad numbering no more than 5 models can take a Legion Proteus or a Dreadclaw as a dedicated transport. As a dedicated transport, this does not... Okay, so those are their 2 options for what they can be carried around in. For dedicated transports, which is okay. Dreadclaw is more of a unique one. Normally it's not really selected. But
it's more of a Trader Legion drop pod.
Well, I would disagree since I have Dreadclaws for my Space Wolves, but that's another topic, right? So you can have up to 5 additional Nullifactors at 45 points a pop. Any of them can swap out their Power Fists for 10 points. Any of them can have the Toxifier Inflamer or the Disintegrator, which I would like to have just a squad of 5 of these guys with 5 Disintegrators. That's what I plan to do. I think it would just be hilarious. Because you get rapid fire, instant death, AP2 weaponry just running around the board. I think it's expensive at 20 points a pop.
Are the disintegrators the things that you're getting 3D printed? Because I've not seen them on the Forge World website.
So disintegrators are not modelled by Forge World or GW. I think the only official model is like the 30th anniversary Marine that came out a while ago.
Ah, that guy, yeah.
Yeah, it's like he's in the Mark 6 Plus or whatever it is.
Yeah, based on the old Rogue Trader stuff.
Yeah. So those are disintegrator guns. They're really cool. Not many units gain access to them, but I like them. They appeal to the war crimes nature of my army. The Nullificator Sergeant can swap out his Shock Maul for a power weapon, Power Fist, or, as you would, a Thunder Hammer. Mm-hmm. So that's really them. They don't get psychic powers like the Daddy Nullifactor gets, but I think that they're really cool. They're the sort of thing that people are going to be wary of even approaching because they could just shoot you back and kill you instantly.
Yeah, they are pretty scary.
But really expensive for what you want them to do.
Yeah, it's definitely a nice... They're a nice bodyguard unit for the console, definitely. Hexagrammic wards, I believe isn't that what the Dark Angel Legions get a lot of?
So they get a different thing. They get the I think whatever their thing is the hexagrammaton rule, which allows them to do like their different fire or their different wings, and that's what they get to do. So these are anti-psyker, whereas they are anti or bonuses to stuff. I think that's the best way to describe it at this point in time.
So there's a lot of units. A lot of units here. So what would be your top, apart from those, what would be your top sort of favourite unit out of the expanded Legion units?
Out of the expanded Legion units, Warmonger I think would have to take my top spot. nullifactors because I think that they could look cool from a modeling perspective. Not that they might do anything on the table, but certainly that's where I go to is for my project.
Yeah, because like looking, because
As we haven't spoken about it yet, but it's next up, the classic box knot. I actually think it's really nice. There's a lot of people would have problems with dreadnoughts in this edition. They are strong. I think that the standard contemptors are actually undercosted for what they do, but I like the box dreadnought just because it's there. And even though GW is not going to be supporting it anymore, anybody who still has them, crack on. I mean, why wouldn't you want to use them?
well, they're not completely phased out yet, but it's inevitable that they will be mothballed. Probably at least over the.
The plastic dreadnoughts, other than the Space Wolf ones, have all been taken off the market, mate.
That's only because have they not been moved into Legacy now?
So that it's much the same as this document. I mean, the Castaferum dreadnought is the humble box knot, and yeah, it's no longer available for 40k players to use.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my god, you are 100% right. Oh my god, Games Workshop. Well, I did say this was going to happen at the start of 8th edition.
But I mean, they just brought out the new dreadnought, and while it doesn't make sense for every legion to follow suit with the new dreadnought, we kind of suspected as much, right?
yeah, that was kind of like a secret Games Workshop wanted to keep, but it was blatantly obvious what they were up to. It's taken, at least they're finally doing it rather than stringing everyone on. But I think personally for 30k, I don't know. I've got a soft spot for Contemptors and Leviathan Dreadnoughts in the Heresy rather than the classic box Dreadnought.
What about the Dorito?
See, the Dodo Dreadnought is just it's stupid but awesome in one big lovely bundle of dreadnoughtness, and I am very much looking forward to the plastic kit, which, going by their timeline, we should be getting this autumn, along with the new Mark III reposed kits as well. And also, this is just to point out that I've watched a lot of Heresy videos now, getting back into it on YouTube. And there's a lot of content creators out there who have come out with videos about how 30k is dead and how Games Workshop has killed 30k. And I would just like to kill that entire conspiracy theory in quotation marks. Is if Games Workshop were really killing Horus Heresy and not caring about it, they wouldn't have invested the time and the resources into taking an old Mark of Armor from a previous edition and then upgrading it and making it better and into scale with the new, very sexy, very awesome Mark 6, which is what they're doing with the Mark 3. And I can imagine that they're going to go down the route of doing this to the Mark 4, and we will hopefully get Mark 2 as well. So this isn't the kind of thing a company would do if they really didn't give a shit about this game. So,
I don't put any thought into people who claim that the game is dead. Certainly, from my own perspective, I mean, we have a very lively.
We really do. That
we,
night,
we have a really lively community in Northern Ireland, and sure, we're small, but you know what? We have a blast, and there's not a week goes by where nobody is having a bit of cane or asking about like different units that they're building or just showing off projects progression, and it's all great. And the campaign days that we've been running have just been spot on.
I did enjoy dropping in that night at the club to sort of see that, and also a big shout out to all the boys and girls over at Exploding, Dice Gaming
Yeah.
Club. They are
Without
really good.
them, we wouldn't have a local place to go. So yes, thank you very much to Exploding Dice for all their hard work.
Yeah, I've often thought about doing a video actually on the creation of these gaming clubs slash stores that Northern Ireland has now, and their humble beginnings at Arkham Gaming Centre in Glencoe, an old ice cream factory, I may add.
That's a blast from the past.
It is, and it started everything. What we have now with
Yeah,
the
I mean,
likes of the shops and everything. It's come from there.
there's there's a few different points of like historic, um, like a few different viewpoints and clubs that have been and gone and amalgamated over the years, which
Yeah,
just goes to show that even though it has changed in terms of what we go by, the community has always been there and has always been really tip top. You
yeah.
couldn't ask for a friend with a bunch of people.
But Northern Ireland doesn't have the superstores like England does, so we don't have likes of
No,
Firestorm games and Element games. Although the new shop in Ards is definitely sort of gearing up to be the Northern Ireland's equivalent of Element Games. Now that they've got their warehouse and everything else, and really ramping
yeah,
up their
I mean
their
it's
their stuff.
I mean, in terms of like the gaming community, I mean, it's like shops open and close, and depending on how they're supported, depends on how they survive. I mean,
Mm.
we have Replay, which has been a cornerstone of wargaming for many many years.
Gareth's like the granddaddy of wargaming.
I mean, I remember that place opening up in the '90s, and it's still there, and it supports the local community. And yeah, I mean, it's just about that. If you don't have people to play with, you're not going to invest in the game, right?
No, and it's the beauty of this hobby. Really, it's a very social hobby. But
Yeah, I mean,
as our listeners
it's all very
will
well.
probably notice, we will go on tangents. 100%.
We will try and work on that.
So get a brew and get comfortable, peeps. It's going to be a bumpy ride.
So back on track. The Legion Castafarm Dreadnought, the humble box knot, as I have referred to it as.
Mothball it.
It it has been mothballed in a way,
Good.
but I mean during the height of the heresy, it was mostly contemptors. There was a few Leviathans and Doritos, and box knots were really one of those throwbacks to keep up with demand. Would you say?
Uh, I think I've always imagined these from the Lost perspective, that they kind of came after the heresy, but obviously during obviously first edition they were brought into the game, and we all know why units like this and a lot of the legacy units on this list are on the list and in the game purely because Games Workshop had the units in 40k and they could be used in 30k.
There, there's
But
a few examples of them porting units
yeah,
from one of the previous black books, but most of these things in the legacy document don't have official models,
no,
or if they don't, they're out of print models which you can still use, or you've just decided, hell, I'm just gonna scratch build my own
mm.
and run it like that.
Yeah, I think for
Um,
me as the narrative point, I personally wouldn't run them. I would rather run Contemptors or Leviathans because that feels more
so the
30k with me.
only reason that I mention it, and the only reason that I mention it is because I have a box dreadnought from Forge World from many years ago, one of the Mark IV Castafarms, and I believe it was actually yours originally, and
Yes, probably was.
and I plan, it's like much like a lot of my 40k Space Wolves, I've been converting them over to 30k so that they're compatible and usable,
Mm.
because ninth edition wasn't really good for me. Um, I didn't really enjoy it in terms of my Space Wolf army. So everything's just being ported over to 30k now. And I'll just keep my Necrons for 40k.
Don't get me wrong, the old Forge World box dreadnought, and when we say the box dreadnought, we're not talking about the classic Games Workshop plastic box dreadnought. Forge World had a very distinct style of dreadnought, which was definitely similar to the plastic kit, which is your classic looking dreadnought. But it had a very unique style that Forge World brought, and they were always sort of looked at as more like venerable type dreadnoughts. And the Forge World Space Wolf version of that was an impressive kit, and it had everything that you would want for a Space Wolf dreadnought. It had the big pelt, the skulls, the claws, everything was there.
Which is just unheard of these days.
Yes, and it had a really cool banner. Now, the Black Templars also, and not anything to do with the Heresy, but the Black Templars also had a very cool looking Furim type style dreadnought as well, which they kind of did a lot of them, and there was some really cool ones. I'm pretty sure there was a Salamander one as well.
There was, but they ended up making that. What's his name?
He was a character. Yeah, he was a character.
He's in this legacy document, and we'll get to him, and you can let me know. So, going on and trying to get a little bit back on track. So, a Castafarm Dreadnought is 125 points. So it's 40 points cheaper than a stock Contemptor, right? It's got movement 6, so it's got two less move than a Contemptor Dreadnought. It's got the same weapon skill and ballistic skill of 5. It's got strength and toughness 6, whereas the Contemptor has 7. And it has 5 wounds instead of 6 of a Contemptor. It's only initiative 2. It's got 3 attacks. Its leadership doesn't matter really, and it's got a 2-up, 5-up save. Comes stock with a bolt cannon and a power fist, which is pretty standard for all dreadnoughts. It's heavy, so it gets to reroll those armor saves, and you can put them in a talon like you can with Contemptor.
Ooh. My watch decided to ring somebody.
Yeah, I heard that.
It's like, why am I ringing my girlfriend?
So you can have up to a talon of 3, and they each cost 125 points. So no extra tax for taking the first one, which happens in some of these heresy units.
I think if I was doing them, I would definitely go for the Mortis build and have basically mobile gun platforms.
So yeah, so their weapon options, most of them are the same as what you can take in a Contemptor. You've got a bolt cannon is now the Dreadnought version of a heavy bolter. That's just the name change. You got the Gravis autocannon, the missile launcher, Flamestor cannon is still there from if anybody still has any of the old Siege Dreadnought kits, which is a rare thing from Forge World if you still have it. You've got the Gravis Plasma Cannon, Multi-Meltas, which are just amazing these days. Gravis Las Cannons, and you can take an extra fist, or you can give it a chain fist. The inbuilt weapons can either be a combi bolter, a heavy flamer, or a melta-gun. You can give it a havoc launcher. You can give it a helical targeting array, so you can make it Skyfire if you really wanted to. Do that Mortis build. But yeah, I mean it's if you can't afford to put a regular dreadnought or a Contemptor dreadnought on your list, right?
Yeah,
it's like you're trying to do a little bit of saving. You have the model. Most of the time, you're going to want a Contemptor over this, but if you have it, it'll still do a lot of work.
Yeah, but if you've got the points for a dreadnought, you're going to bring a Contemptor. But for 125 points, what's that in comparison to a Legion Heavy Support Squad?
Oh well, a Legion Heavy Support Squad. Legion heavy support squads are way too cheap, in my opinion.
But that is good.
Because, so for me as a Space Wolf player, I use a lot of heavy support slots, but I try to make them fast enough to keep up with the rest of the army.
You should
And
be
anytime
bracing your long fangs.
any time I've taken a heavy support squad, it's always been with Volkite Culverins. And this edition, that gun is insane.
Yes,
I don't know why.
It's one of the main reasons why I've gone Salamanders.
I don't know why the Volkite Culverin in version 1 to version 2 gained an extra shot for no reason at all. It was fine at 4 shots. Why it's 5 shots per gun now, it's beyond me.
Have you seen Andy Hall's army?
I haven't.
The creator of second edition. It's mostly
No, I haven't. No.
It's mostly Volkite. That answers that question.
I mean, it's disgusting. I mean, you're paying 50 points for 10 Volkite Culverins, and it's 50 shots in a squad.
Yeah.
And you'll give them an augury scanner, and that squad is 235 points.
I think the Legions have a place, but this is an elite slot, so it's not in a heavy support slot.
It's not a competing thing.
No.
So,
and it does have a 5-up invulnerable save, which I was surprised at.
It does have a 5-up invuln, but just for par for the course, its explosion is weaker than any other explosion in the game. Being strength 6 instead of strength 8 for no reason at all. I guess the reactor is smaller, so therefore it's less lethal.
It's little. It's got littler legs.
Yeah. It's like it's only got baby plasma or something.
It's mostly marine with a box around him.
Yeah. So I mean, it's nothing to write home about. It's there. It's the classic box dreadnought. Next. Oh God! Right, okay. You can take this one.
I don't
Rick.
Really. You want me to talk about attack bikes? Right. They're a fast attack. They're 55 points, and that's it. That's all I'm going to say. They're attack bikes. Yeah, they're man. Like the models look shit. So their outriders are better. Even scimitar jet bikes are better than these. And that is saying something.
So I actually really like jet bikes this edition. I think that they're in a pretty good place, even though they lost a toughness. But all bikes lost a toughness.
Yeah, the attack bikes they weren't very good in 40k.
So here's one for you. So attack bikes have 2 guys on them, right?
Yeah, and they're toughness
4. How many wounds does an attack bike have, Rick?
1. Because it's the bike, not the guys. I
don't think there's much you can really say about this unit. They are just shit.
Although I will say one thing: you can have a unit of 5 tack bikes. Now that would look funny, and if anyone was to come to a game with 5 attack bikes, I would give them a victory point just for the sheer fact that they thought that was a really good idea.
But then you would use your Scorpius to immediately punish them, right?
Oh hell yeah, I'd burn them, burn them alive. But they can bring multi-melters, so you've got, I mean, for what's that, 60, 80 points a model, you can essentially bring 5 multi-melters that are going to be moving 14 inches.
80 points for 1 wound model.
Yes, they are. I didn't say they were good.
I mean that is beyond glass cannon.
Yeah,
it is. I mean, why do that whenever you could take a squad of jet bikes, which cost you 45 points a model with a multi-melter?
True, but these guys, and I'm gonna play devil's advocate now and support the attack bike squadron. These guys, if they choose to run, gain Shroud 5+. So,
The exact same thing happens to jet bikes and regular bikes.
yes, but these will look cooler because there's five attack bikes on the table.
I don't think that there's really an awful lot able to save these guys. I mean, jet bikes are cheaper. They have an extra wound. They have hit and run. They have they have multi melters just like these guys.
Attack bikes have
I
a
don't.
Vexilla.
Yeah, that's can't. No, they can't.
They get one Vexilla.
Oh no, they can. They can take a Vexilla.
They can.
So that means that they're not going to run. They're not going to run off the board, which is helpful.
So for all of those points, there's way many better options in the fast attack area.
But if you have
than
them,
attack bikes. Yeah, I'm just gonna scroll way past, and I'm even gonna scroll past the next one as well because nobody is bringing sentry guns.
So Legion Tarantula sentry guns are in it.
No.
And now we talk about Legion Terminator Indominus squad.
Yes, because this is the interesting thing because these are troops.
Yes.
Terminator troops.
Because obviously you know all about 40k, Rick. Tell us about Indominus Terminators.
They're proper Terminators. They're the only Terminator. No, obviously, if you don't know what an Indominus Terminator is, you know the dudes in the Leviathan box. That's an Indominus Terminator. That's the Indominus pattern. The Gorgons for the Iron Hands also are Indominus Terminators. They're pretty cool.
They're sort of Indominus.
Well, they're Indominus with bits because they're Iron Hands and they're like adding bits.
Yeah. But I mean, that's just Ferris Manus, right? That's just him making up the stuff and then everybody copying and making a slightly worse version, right?
Yeah. But these guys are 175 points for 5 Terminators that are troops. There are 2 wound models. They've got 2 attack space with 3 for the sergeant, and of course they've got a 2-up save because they're Terminators. And they've got a 5-up invulnerable. Now they're not as good as Cataphracti when it comes to the invulnerable, but Cataphracti is the pinnacle of heavy troops in the Heresy. You're not going to get any heavier.
Cataphracti was like the prototype, and it was the most defensive version. Yeah. And then you had Tartarus, which was the most advanced and most difficult to make because it gave you the mobility of a regular Marine.
From a law point, the Indominus was meant to be what the legions were all going to be wearing. So this was their idea, their grand plan was all of the legionaries, regardless of what they did, was going to be wearing Indominus armor, because it was essentially they would turn the legions into walking tanks. Unfortunately, Horus had a falling out with his dad, and everything kind of went foobar at that point. So we never got entire legions worth of Indominus Marines, because that would be cool.
But it does lead on to then, that's why that there is so much Indominus in 40k, because by the end of the Heresy, the most of the Cataphracti and Tartarus was running down, and Indominus was easier to replace it, and therefore it was just easier to maintain overall.
Yeah, and now, 10,000 years later, they seem to have forgotten how to make Indominus armor, but they can make new normal Gravis armor.
You can still have access in your data cards to relic Terminators, I believe, which are your Cataphracti and Tartarus.
For now, don't expect them to hang around in the Codex. But they are pretty good. So, these guys come as standard with a Combi Bolter and a Power Fist. They've got Relentless, Bulky 2, and a word that I'm not even going to attempt to try to say.
Inexorable.
That's the one. But either way, these guys also get access to assault cannons. And for anybody who is new to Horus Heresy, the assault cannon at this point was very much a prototype weapon system.
Unless you're talking about the Blood Angels or the Imperial Fist.
So they were the 2 legions that were sort of testing it out at the time the Heresy kicked off, hence the reason why they're the ones that have it. For other legions to be able to bring Terminators with an assault cannon. Now, assault cannons aren't the be-all and end-all. Like, everyone gets excited about them in 40k. They are a 24-inch range gun that is Strength 6 AP4. It is Assault 3, but it is Rending 6 plus. So
which is
it's
nice.
not bad. And they
I
also
mean, if
get access to Storm Shields.
yeah, so this is what I really like about them. So I personally have a unit of these for my Heresy Force. I went and bought 2 boxes just to specifically make up from scratch.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want the Crux Terminatus on them like their 40k brethren. And for those who don't know, that's like the cross symbol that they have in their left pauldron.
And
And
sometimes you'll see on their knees.
and sometimes you'll see it in their knees and stuff. But it's really for the fluff perspective of my force, I wanted them not to have that because it's a 30k army. So I went and got some 3D printed shoulder pads printed out. So that I could have like Viking knotwork over their shoulders instead.
I will say this though on the model side though, because Games Workshop are re-releasing Terminators to a new scale to fit the sort of larger scale that 40k is now played at with in regards to the Marines. If you do want to get Indominus Terminators for your legions, I would get them now before the main release of the Marines comes out in a month or so time, because the old Terminator kits will be scrapped. They will be literally taken off the shelf, and you'll not get them anymore.
100%.
Because the scale between the new Terminators in the Leviathan box and your Terminators in your 30k range is going to be incredibly noticeable.
It's an interesting thing you mentioned that, Rick, because obviously with the scale change for 40k happening and these being a 40k predominant miniature, you are entirely correct. 30k, from that point of view on the tabletop, I mean, most people into 30k, I mean, obviously the new size difference for the Mark 6 Marines over the previous plastics and resin miniatures are slightly rescaled and reshaped and resized. But honestly, there's not that much in it.
Not
And
much.
they all look really good beside each other on the
Yeah.
table. I mean, I mix and match my armor marks in my squad. I go between Mark 3, Mark 5, Mark 4, Mark 6. I've even got a Mark 2 guy in there somewhere. But I really like chopping and changing and mixing up my squad armors because it's the wolf thing to do, right? It's
Yeah.
like you just get what's given to you. You're not all uniform. And I think that these 40k Terminators are a little bit too tall.
Well, they're obviously
For
scaled.
30k, they're just scaled wrong.
Oh yeah, they're huge. Like, they are
I mean,
massive. But
they
then,
will far over your Legion specific Terminators, which are
oh yeah,
big, chunky Forge World guys. They will just look out of place.
there is a little bit of a rumor type theory that we will be seeing new Terminators in Horus Heresy.
I mean, it's not
And,
impossible.
well, and the reason why people think this is if you look at some of the new Praetor models that have come out recently,
Yeah, like
the
I like
Ultramarines, the Imperial Fist, and that new character that come out for the Imperial Fist for the Chthonian campaign book. Their
yeah.
scale in Terminator armor, even though it's cataphracti, is a lot bigger than the plastic kit.
Yeah,
So
those miniatures and those like the likes of those miniatures, I like to refer to them as like hero scale.
yeah,
Just to get for ease of understanding,
yeah,
because they are bigger than your standard Marines,
yeah,
and they're designed that way because they're meant to be like they're meant to be your general, so they're gonna be standing on a big tactical rock, or they're gonna be a little bit more imposing or bigger, or they're going to have a big cape. And they're going to stand out from the crowd. And I don't think that an HQ model having that scale is a bad thing. I actually think it makes for some really good.
no. I don't think I don't necessarily think it's um, like a hero thing. It's. I think I've seen a photo of the new character for the Imperial Fists, not on a base, but like sort of stood next to a Cataphracti Terminator on a base, and he was
Yeah.
still bigger.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I with
I mean,
them,
it seems to be part of the course for GW that these characters that they're bringing out are going to be chunkier
I don't think
than the
it's
average infantry.
I don't think it's
But
just the characters. I've got a feeling that with the Mark III being updated, and the rumors of the Mark IV also going to be getting updated, I wouldn't I
they'll be
wouldn't be I wouldn't put the
seriously.
past them to update the Cataphracti and the Tartarus Terminators.
That's one that we're just going to have to, I think, wait and see. But it's certainly plausible.
Yeah.
It is certainly plausible. But I have all of my plastic, and I'll not be changing.
No, but if you are definitely new to 30k and you want to bring in some Indominus, now is definitely the time to grab them, or hope that your local gaming store is still got some later on, and selling them at a discount to get rid of them, because obviously everyone's going to be buying the new shiny, larger, far sexier looking Terminator. They are the Terminators that your girlfriend told you not to worry about.
So as we're going over this, is like I because of the Legion that I play, I just went out and bought two 40k Space Wolf Terminator boxes, which look amazing in the Heresy color scheme.
And you get a lot of bits.
It's you get a lot of bits, but the way the way that I decided to do these guys was just 10 guys, storm shields and thunderhammers. It will kill anything on the board that you throw it at. It's slow, but it'll eventually hit something. And it'll typically it's like my own slightly worse version of your fire drakes.
Huh. Fire drakes are so good.
That's the way that I look at them. Because the storm shield gives them a 4-up invuln instead of their 5-up, which makes them as good as the Caliphracti. And then you've got the Thunderhammers, which is what you really want to smash face with.
So, from the Salamander's point of view, now they come with a 5-up base. They come up with a 5-up invulnerable base. Now, it would be pointless for us Salamander players to put our Stormdrake shields on these guys, because that would only increase the invulnerable, which is only going to make it an invulnerable of a 4+ anyway. But it would definitely, and the Proteus pattern storm shields are 10 points, which is the same amount of points as the Salamander storm shield. But these storm shields are actually better than ours. Because they have the two-handed special rule.
Because you can't ever gain an attack for two-handed?
Yeah, but we lose a weapon option completely for the Stormdrake. So
do you have a two-handed weapon option in the Stormdrake?
I believe we do. Or the Fire Drakes. But we can put the Stormdrake shields on any unit, so even power armor. But we could essentially put them on these, and it would actually make no difference whatsoever.
Yeah, it's the same bit of war gear, really.
Yeah.
Now it's not listed in this particular the document that we're reading off of. However, they did update this this document recently. And they gave an additional rule to the Indomitus squad, which is that if you use it if you decide to take them in a Pride of the Legion force, they lose support squad and gain line.
Wow.
Which is really good.
Yeah.
And I mean, I have been taking a Space Wolf Pride of the Legion force with nothing but Terminators in it. And having these guys run along and act as like a second line to the Tartarus blob that I have in there is just so good.
Yeah, I want to do a Pride of the Legion force for the Salamanders.
Yeah, I mean, having these guys and then having a few units of fire drakes would just be epic.
Yeah, they are nice, and they've definitely got a lot of options. And access to weapon systems that most legions are not going to get access to. Um,
I mean, even these guys with 2 lightning claws is a really good shout.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because lightning claws are just great this edition as well.
I love lightning claws. There's just something so nice about a Terminator with a pair of lightning claws.
Yeah, yeah. So moving on, because obviously that is, I mean, this squad is one of my top picks for things from this PDF. I think that for a generic unit that can fit into any legion, and it is a trip choice instead of an elite slot, which saves you on those precious resources. But it's just really good for the points. You can give them a Proteus carrier, or you can give them a Dreadclaw, much like the Nullifactors.
Yeah.
But and Inexorable just is it's like diet stubborn. It's like if everybody in the unit has Inexorable, then they don't take minuses from like pinning checks or something like that.
Yeah.
So,
I think
that's what that is.
I think we can skip the next couple because they're flyers and.
I mean, I think we need to visit them whenever we talk about. I think we do. We should be talking about all flyers in a single video.
But
because there's a lot to unpack whenever it comes to flyers in this edition, and whenever we do go through it, you'll see why I don't think that they've received much love. No. But that's all we'll mention on them for now.
But the next one would definitely be the Land Raider Phobos, which I like the Land Raider Phobos.
I mean, the Land Raider Phobos is exactly the same as the Proteus, only it's that 40k hull, right?
Yes.
It's just the same. I have never encountered anybody who has challenged anybody and says, "Hang on, your Land Raider's a Phobos and not a Proteus. You can't take that as a dedicated transport." A Land Raider is typically a Land Raider.
Yeah, I've always been under the impression that they were the same tank.
Yeah, and I don't know why they did this, but I suppose they did that because they were bringing out a plastic Heresy Land Raider kit, and a lot of people still had 40k Land Raiders that they're using, so they're just sort of covering their bases, right?
Yeah,
but it's exactly the same.
I think the difference always was that the Protoss didn't have the assault ramp, and the Proteus did.
Now, let me just give me fill in some time. I'm just going to double check that because I think they both have an assault ramp.
I think from what I remember, one had an assault ramp, one didn't. And obviously the new plastic kit has 2 variants of the tank. You have the one without the assault ramp, and you have one with the assault ramp. So technically, if that is correct, then we have a Land Raider Proteus in Horus Heresy.
Oh, Land Raider Proteus.
Well, it is. It's the same tank.
So you've got the Land Raider Proteus carrier, which is the same as the Phobos.
Yeah.
And it does have an assault ramp.
It does, yeah. It does.
Yeah, so it does have an assault ramp. So it's the exact same loadout. It's the exact same points. There's no reason to question anybody on their standard Land Raiders.
Obviously, again, I think this was to allow players to buy the plastic kit from 40k and use it in games of 30k. And this
I think it's more of like a coverall, because in Heresy 1, certainly, I mean, I have 40k Vindicators. I have like the older marks of Rhino. I never really bought into Land Raiders apart from my Achilles, which we'll discuss shortly. But yeah, I mean, a Land Raider's a Land Raider. They didn't really need to do that, but they did. So that's it. The only difference is that if you're wanting to do like a proper like competitive force, or like your list is super accurate, then if you're taking Phoboses because that's the model that you have, then they're not dedicated transports. But who is going to be that thick and not allow you to just take it as a regular Land Raider?
Yeah, I think the fact that the two tanks are essentially the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
gonna. I'll have to dig out the old red books and actually see, because they are in the original red book. Um,
But other than that, they are exactly the same as the Land Raider from the Libra, from the Loyalist, and from
yeah,
the Trader. Exactly the same.
but you're
Um,
just gonna bring a Spartan instead. 3 Spartans. That's the golden number.
enough of your nonsense, and let's get on to the next one. So the Land Raider Achilles. Now, this is another out of print model for everybody just to know. It is a Land Raider, but instead of it gives up a little bit of its troop capacity to put a mortar cannon on the front of it
Yeah,
and change out its las cannons for either Gravis multi-meltas or two twin-linked Volkite culverins.
basically the AdMech was smoking something the day they created it.
So it's a pricey tank at 320 points.
Yes.
I mean, it's got, instead of the transport capacity of a regular Land Raider, it halves that, so you can only carry 6 guys inside. It's one access point on either side, so it doesn't have an assault ramp and is not an assault vehicle. It has a ferromantic invulnerability and a galvanic traction drive compared to a regular Land Raider as well. You can take a pintle mounted thing, but really the option is either you can change out the Melta gun or you can change out the Melta cannons for Volkite if you want.
Yeah.
The quad launcher is, so in version 1. Now, I was a great supporter of this because, again, war crimes. You could take a siege breaker as a console, and then every mortar in your army, whether it be from Medusas, whether it be from quad launchers, whether it be from the Achilles, could all take Phosphex rounds. And now that's been reduced to just the quad launchers can take Phosphex rounds. Maybe the Medusas as we read on, but I haven't got there yet. But it does get its own ammunition types. So it's got 2. They're both 24-inch range. The first one is shard shells, strength 5, AP 5, one heavy 1, large blast with shred. So it's a large blast heavy bolter with rerolls to wound. Which, if you need to put down fire, I suppose it's not the worst thing in the world. But the ammunition you're going to find yourself using all the time is the strike shells, which are 24-inch range, strength 8, AP 4, heavy 4 with sunder. So you're getting to re-roll your armor pens against vehicles.
Sunder
That's really
is good. Yes, very
because
good.
even though it's AP 4 and you're not doing any breaching or rending, any Marine that fails a save, not getting its feel no pain, and it's losing all of its wounds at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's one failed save will kill each Marine. And that's, I think, where this tank really shows its own. Because its melted cannons are 24-inch range. This is 24-inch range. It's all strength 8. That's all nasty. On top of that, it did get to keep an old rule that it had from the previous edition, Ferromantic Invulnerability. It is the only tank in the game which is immune to Armor Bane and the Lance rule.
Which is really big.
For Armor Bane, that is huge, because that means that Melta guns are only ever working off of 6s to blast you.
Yeah.
Really, really strong. I haven't seen much Lance. however, in 30k, so I'm not too sure what has that. But having immunity Melta is really strong.
Pretty sure the new Lance and Knight has got it.
Okay. And then on top of that, you get to re-roll all field dangerous terrain tests, because the idea behind the Achilles was that it was more heavily armed and armored, and it was just able to drive through whatever it wanted to because the mechanic can put in extra engines.
Smoking things before building it.
Yeah, but I mean, it is a really expensive tank for what you want to do with it. But if you have it, I mean, I'm gonna be fielding a artillery based Space Wolves army in the near future, which is going to be interesting. just for some giggles.
So you keep calling on this about these war crimes. Are you sure you're a loyalist?
Most definitely. Most definitely. So moving on from that, we have, I suppose. I mean, do we just pile all the artillery tanks into the same thing?
No, because we'll upset the Iron Warrior players who can no longer take them.
Okay, so let's talk about the Basilisk then.
Oh, you really just want to be salty with them. You know, I like the Basilisk. And they had a really nice Legion version of it, which was really, really cool, with a couple of Legionaries in the back. And for them to be essentially removed, especially for the Iron Warrior players who got to take them as a Legion option, as a Legion unit, they are cool. I mean, why would you not want a gun with a 240-inch range?
Because it's a pretty crap gun.
But it's got 240 inches.
Yeah, but I don't think that really matters. I mean, most people are playing on a 6x4 table.
But you could set them up in the corner of the club and still hit the table.
I mean, if you want to hit other tables and that is allowed, then crack on. But I don't think. I mean, it's the same sort of thing for my Warhound Titan. It's like I can take double the laser destroyers, which have 96-inch range. But when am I ever going to need to measure that? Ever?
Yeah, it's.
I mean, I get what they're going for, but crack on, GW.
Yeah.
Your ranges are silly.
Yeah, I've got a soft spot for basilisks because they've always been like an iconic unit for 40k, especially for the guard.
I think that there's a common theme throughout version 2 where a lot of these blast weapons, especially like the battle cannons and demolisher cannons and things that you would think would be used to like break sieges and break everything trying to face them, because these are massive shells that are being laid down on you, and nearly all of them got reduced in AP by at least one, to mean that they can't kill Marines outright and they get a save, which I think is a really backwards way to look at it. It used to be really fun because everybody was playing 30k saying nothing's broken because everything is. Everything can kill you, so crack on, take what you like.
Yeah.
It's dulled that down a wee bit. Not many people want to take these things anymore because they can't be effective. I mean, if you shoot an Earthshaker cannon at, say, a unit of Indominus Terminators, which you may or may not see more of than a Basilisk, they're getting a 2-up rerollable save against whatever shots that Basilisk is throwing at them.
Yeah, but the rule of cool of having 3 of these in the backfield just wins.
I mean, sure. And you can have a squadron of 3, which is always nice. But I mean, they have pinning on the rounds, which is good because pinning is really helpful this edition.
I just think templates as a whole, anything in second edition that is firing a template is essentially at a disadvantage. I mean, this is one of the biggest issues that legions like the Salamanders, who predominantly want to be running around with flamers, have, because most armies, and I would imagine this is more from a competitive standpoint than a narrative, are running a lot of heavy infantry, so they're getting that reroll against
So
against the template weapons.
I would actually argue that while some of the Legion rules are a little bit lackluster compared to some others, Salamanders excel at destroying non-Marines. Solar
They do.
Auxilia, Mechanicum, Imperialis Militia, all just die to you.
Yes, but once you come up
I
to
mean,
in a
you
legion
have
on
a
a
real
legion, an a legion on a legion fight, um,
you
you
you're just another legion at that point
yeah.
because of because your legion rules aren't going to be all that useful. You get like it will not die on everybody.
Yeah, the whole army gets it. It will not die. But
Which
we'll go into depth on the salamanders because
we'll go into depth.
there's a lot
Yeah.
of that I want to talk about with them, and kind of sort of shine a little bit of positivity on a legion that gets a lot of flack online, by saying that I
Maybe
do not agree we are the worst. We are not the worst.
undue flat, I think
Yes,
is the way to put
there
it.
is a lot of positives with that legion, and we will definitely go through that. But
And
onto
it's
the artillery.
on to the next one. Now I think that the Medusa is miles better than the Basilisk. It's the same amount of points. You get the same chaffy. You're not going to move it because it's a big artillery tank anyway, and it
Sorry,
has a Medusa mortar instead of the Earthshaker cannon.
which is only
And
36 inches.
although it's only 36 inches, it's still the same strength and AP as the Earthshaker.
Which is its problem.
And it also has rending, which makes it superior to the Earthshaker cannon.
Yes, but it's still AP4.
Yes, and you are fishing for sixes at that point, but at
Yeah.
least those sixes will force a pinning check on the enemy.
It's an AP4 in a sea of 3-up armor saves.
Yeah. So I mean, you're hunting for those sixes and you're wishing for them to happen.
Sorry, Iron Warrior players.
But it is still a damn sight better than the Basilisk.
It is, yes. And the one thing that is missing here is the Death Strike missile. I'm very sad.
Oh, ooh, okay.
I want to bring a nuke to a firefight.
Okay.
Yes.
Sure.
Crimes.
On to your last artillery choice.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up after this because this is a classic, and this is a unit that is very fond to my heart.
It is the traditional whirlwind.
Yes.
Now, the traditional whirlwind is it just like its 40k counterpart. So it's not the Scorpius, which a lot of people have fallen in love with, or the friend maker, as some people would call it.
I wonder why.
It makes friends.
Does it? In your little bubble, it might. How many have you got now?
I have a squadron of 2.
Oh, only 2?
Well, it can only be a squadron of 2.
Not if you bring 2 squadrons.
So the whirlwind costs the same amount as the Scorpius at 120 points.
And straight away, you're just going to take a Scorpius.
You cannot have a squadron of them. It is just a single whirlwind.
Yeah.
It can take the normal pintle mounts, but it's a whirlwind, so you'll not bother. It can take a dozer blade if you really want. Same for searchlights. And it has 3 ammunition types.
It needs that dozer blade to run away and not get immobilized on the wall.
Nah, you ram people whenever they get close to it.
I would actually use this to ram other tanks, to be fair.
So it's got 3 ammunition types. So the first one is the Talonus HE missile, which is 48-inch range, strength 6, AP 4, Ordnance 1, barrage, large blast. It's just crap.
Yes, your Terminators are laughing at it.
Yeah. I mean, Sure, you're going to absolutely wreck anything in carapace armor or worse.
The one thing that I don't understand, right, is you've got a HE round, like high
Yeah,
explosives, and then you have an
yeah.
AP, which is an anti personnel, like
Armor, armor piercing.
an anti tank shell, and it's
Yeah, so high,
exactly the same thing apart from
so,
one strength 6, one strength 7.
yeah,
All
and
right,
one has
okay,
breach and one
okay, it has
doesn't.
breaching, which is going to help it against fortifications and stuff, but like
It's a small
seriously,
blast instead of a large blast.
but seriously. Like
Yeah,
you could
yeah.
tell at the point that when the writers like updated this, they'd lost all hope.
They lost any effort into
Yeah,
what to do with the unit at
yeah.
that
They were
point.
like, they're just going to take scorpions. So just
Yeah, yeah. And then you've got the the Icaros anti-air missile, which is
oh,
again 48-inch range, strength 7, AP 3 this time, ordnance 1, twin linked gunfire.
do you know what's actually really good about that? That's
I think it is terrible. It is one shot.
yeah, but it's better at killing marines than the actual missiles.
But because it has Skyfire tied into that weapon system, you're firing snapshots at the ground.
Yeah, but you're twin linked. I'd still fire that at a marine squad rather than the firing the HE missile. I've got a better chance of killing it.
Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't scream good, does it?
And then you drive across the table and try to tank shock them off the board.
Yeah, I'll just take my Scorpiuses.
Yes, that's so bad. Oh. But we are literally, wow, we have been going on for nearly 2 hours. It's not bad.
So yeah, so we'll skip over the Cessus Assault Ram because it falls into our flyer category.
Yeah.
Um, then we've got okay, so we've got some oddities.
I think what we should do is definitely for the rest of this list. A lot of this would fit into what I would say is the militia of the guard part of the
Well,
game.
so the last two choices that we have that we could speak about
Which
is
is
the Malkador assault tank and the Minotaur battery. Everything after that is Lords of War, which we can cover in another segment. But I think it would be good to just clear off the regular choices, and then we can come back to this at a later date.
Yeah, because there's a lot. I mean, we haven't even touched the units
We haven't
specific
even
to
touched the legions.
legions.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean,
this
it's
is
a
a
pretty
big
big
document.
document that they rolled out. And I
It
think it
is.
was it within the first week of Heresy dropping that they released this document as well.
Yeah, I think that's because there was a lot of outrage because people bought their Legion books and opened it and went, "Where's my basilisks?" That was the Iron Warrior players. They were not happy.
Mm, yeah.
Nobody was like looking at them and going, "Where's my whirlwinds?"
Yeah, yeah. Where's my Phobos?
Oh, where there? It's there. It's in the Land Raider section. It's listed as a different name.
So the last two choices. So we've got the Malkador assault tank. Now I don't know a huge amount about the Malkador. I thought it was. Is it a Solar Auxilia tank normally?
I do not know. I always thought the Malkador assault tank was that really, really big looking thing that looked like it come out of World War Two.
Yeah, yeah. I
Is
think we're on the same page for what it is. I think it's normally an Auxilia tank.
Dufort will still
Um,
sell it.
I think they do.
Is it a super heavy?
It is not a super heavy. It is a heavy support choice.
I am gonna look. Tanks. Let's have a little Scooby to see what it actually looks like. No, that's not it.
So while Rick's looking for it, so it's equipped with a hull-mounted heavy bolter on the front. On the front, it's also got a hull-mounted battle cannon. It's got two heavy bolters mounted on the left and right side. It's got searchlights. It's got a smoke launcher. It's Legion Astartes, and it's got a special role called Independent Fire Control. It can be in a squadron of up to 3 Malkador assault tanks for 245 points each. Yeesh.
I found the Malkadors. But
I mean, it's
I
BS4 because it's Marines. Front side 13, rear 12, 5 hull points. It's a reinforced vehicle, so it's never going to be slowed down by people.
yeah.
It can exchange the battle cannon for for two Gravis las cannons or a Vanquisher battle cannon for 10 points. It can swap out the front heavy bolter for an autocannon, a multi-laser, a heavy flamer, a las cannon, or a demolisher cannon for 50 points. Spicy. It can swap out its side heavy bolters for autocannons, multi-lasers, or heavy flamers for free. It can take las cannons on the sides for 25 points. And then it can also have a bunch of like pintle mounted stuff. And it can take a flare shield for 25.
Well, that's good.
But I mean, it has no transport capacity, so it's just a gun tank.
Yes.
I mean, this just falls into the category of if you have it, you can use it, right?
Yeah, I mean, model-wise, from what I can see, there's no specific model for the assault tank. There is, though, 4 different versions of it. So there's one with a flamer, the Annihilator, the one with a mortar, and then one with a battle cannon. But it's kind of like a longer version of a Lehman Russ. The thing we were thinking of is the Gorgon armored assault transport.
Yeah, which is definitely not a Marine thing. I don't
Definitely
think
isn't. I want one of them.
So I mean, there's not really much you can say about the Malkador. It's just a big shooting platform.
It
It's
is.
BS4. It doesn't have part of the machine spirit. I don't know what independent fire control is. I think that might be a rule in the main book.
It's a weird tank that it's
It
kind of
doesn't.
like if you like it, you're gonna buy it. But
I mean, it's a sort of thing that you would have if you're doing like a Great Crusade era army, right?
yeah,
It falls into that same sort of category as like the Kratos. It's before like the standard templates were constructed. It's like they're using what they have available to them before they get their own gear. It's just a gun tank, right? I mean, that's all I can really say about it, unless you want to add anything. I mean, flare shield on an armor 13 vehicle doesn't seem like it'd be really that effective.
no,
Most,
but
most,
the but
most things die to las cannons.
yeah, but giving it a flare shield is kind of cool, I suppose. It's there's not many
Yeah,
tanks outside of Spartans and super heavies that are getting flare shields.
I think the only way that I would want to run this if I had one was I'd take a Vanquisher cannon on the front, because then that is some decent anti-tank pop.
Yeah,
And I would swap out all of the heavy bolters for las cannons.
yeah,
And I would just turn it into a big hitter, and it would fill the same sort of role as a Kratos. Yeah, nothing much else I can really say about it.
yeah. Yeah, it's not amazing.
So now onto our last unit, however, the Minotaur battery. No, this is okay.
Is this not just the Basilisk that has no tank?
This
It
is so this it's still a vehicle, so it's on tracks. It's got movement 8. It's slow and reinforced. It's BS4 like all Marine vehicles. Armor 13, 12, 13 with 4 hull points. That's odd. I mean, that rear armor 13 is actually going to see you be protected from a lot of crack grenades can't touch you, because crack grenade is strength 6, and if you decide to try and hurt this thing, you can't even glance it.
I've just found the model.
It's got a hull centerline rear-mounted twin-linked Earthshaker cannon. So the same gun as the Basilisk, only twin-linked. The unit is 280, but you can add an additional Minotaur for 265. It's got an open crew compartment, so any hits scored against it are resolved against the vehicle's armor facing with the lowest value. So you always go off of your side armor because you're open topped. And then the Earthshaker cannon, which is already lackluster, as we know.
I mean, model-wise, it looks like it's
cool.
walked straight out of World War II. It's crazy, but yeah, it doesn't really have.
It doesn't scream youthful.
Yeah, it doesn't scream Legion Astartes. It's definitely an Imperial Guard or a militia tank that the Marines are kind of using it. In fact, I don't even think that the crew that you get with the vehicle is actually Marines. I think they are actually Guardsmen as well. But the pitch, in fact.
So even though, I mean, thank you listeners for listening to us for however long we've been waffling on for. And if you've made it to this stage, well played.
Fair play. I think for going forward, we'll sort of keep the episodes down to about an hour.
We will try not to be lost in our own.
We will waffle. That's going to happen, and we will go off on tangents. But yes, we will try to keep it around, and we'll be structured around a nice episode theme. But feel free to leave your feedback, comments, and anything else in the comment section below, and we will definitely take that on board. And
that's been the generic units of Legacy. I suppose next time we'll get into the Legion specific units, which I think might be more than what is here for the generic units. But it's a lot of different special characters.
Yeah, I think what probably the good thing would be to do is to split it down into top picks for Legion units and then top picks for the Legion characters, rather than just doing it as a combined thing, because there's a lot of them.
Yeah, another thing that we could possibly do is these Legion units we could just filter into the specific legions that we're going to be speaking about.
Yeah, definitely.
Fortifications are there. I have not seen anybody take a fortification in 30k yet. It has happened once in first edition with an Imperial Fist player, but after that nobody takes it.
Yeah, but Tom had 2 of them.
Yeah. Yes, he did, and fair play to him.
And no one knows why he had 2 of them.
It's not the sort of thing that you'll end up properly taking.
No, it's like I'm going to take half of the board as my fortifications, and I remember when I played Tom with my Space Wolves, and he took Rogel Dawn, and he decided to do the lot of the sort of bumping up and the sort of pre-fight talk, and I was like, I am up for this fight, because first edition Lehman Russ was not to be messed about with, and the entire game he stayed in his little castle. He didn't come out of his little castle, apart from sending Sigmund in a Spartan with a load of Terminators to try to stop Russ. Didn't end well for Sigmund, let's just put it that way. And eventually when I did take down the wall, it was a massacre. But yeah, Tom liked his walls. And didn't like
and I suppose as a die-hard Imperial Fist player, you should enjoy a wall.
Yes, he liked his walls. 2 fortresses. It was hilarious. But this.
Yeah, so that is the generic units from Legacy. Final thoughts, Rick? What this is the first time that you've really read through the document. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on it? And was there any sort of generic units that stood out to you
Not
before we
really.
finish up?
No, no. I'd potentially would maybe look at the Indominus squad.
Yeah,
But personally, uh, they're legacy for a reason, and
yeah,
there's a lot of cool stuff in the traitor and the loyalist books, and the so for me, I don't even the salamander units that are here. I probably wouldn't touch them.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think I've just
Well,
got a distinct vision of how I want my army to look.
yeah,
And it's very much
that's
in the
fair.
30 K sort of theme.
Yeah, for
But I
sure.
know you will. You will definitely be
Well,
pulling units out of this.
I mean, as I said, I mean, I have a unit of Indomitus. I will eventually get round to building a Nullifactor squad, but I use the Warmonger. I will end up using a box knot just because I have it.
Mm,
I mean, I have the only time that I think I've ever built a list with the box knot in it has actually been to build the Forbidden List, the the Fury of the Ancients,
yeah.
the most despised of all of the rights of war,
It's because
where you just take Dreadnought.
people don't want to fight against 20 dreadnoughts that don't die.
I mean, it's obscene, but it's there for if anybody ever wants to take on a hard.
Yeah.
It's
I,
not something that I will voluntarily play against somebody that.
I think personally, if I was going to pick any of the Legion expanded units, and for something that you won't see very often, it would probably be something like a Shadow Sword or something. And that's purely just so I can have a volcano cannon in my army.
Yes,
And I
and
wouldn't really
whenever
want to take a fell blade.
and I, having actually played with my Shadow Sword in version 2, I can report that it is well overcosted for what it actually does. And although it was fun to use, I don't think it'll be coming out of storage again
But yeah, but
because it's. I mean, just to wrap up, Rick. How much is a fell blade to field?
I don't know. I think they're in there. What they're around about 500 odd points.
Well, a Shadow Sword is 850
Yeah. Well,
for no
it's
reason.
personally,
No reason.
I would buy the Shadow Sword and just run it as a fell blade because they're the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, pretty much.
They are same thing. And
Okay.
obviously, if you are new to the channel, smash that subscribe button, like the podcast, and ring the bell for so you don't miss out. And keep an eye on the community tab on the YouTube page because any future episodes I will advertise beforehand for when they're coming.
But yes, thank you all very much for listening, and hopefully this will be an ongoing thing. And
Yep.
we'll see you next time.
See you later.